Welcome to Insights at the Edge, produced by Sounds True. My name's Tami Simon. I'm the founder of Sounds True. Today, my guest is Dr. Jeffrey Rutstein. Dr. Jeffrey Rutstein is a clinical psychologist, an expert in the treatment of trauma, a certified Hakomi mindfulness-centered somatic psychotherapist, and a meditation teacher who has been in private practice for over 35 years.
So, when we're in a defensive state, we're being ruled by our older sections of brain, the mammalian brain or the reptilian brain. And those brains are before our thinking neocortex, the white cauliflower of the top level of our brain. When our actions are being directed by those areas, there's actually a disconnect to our thinking mind. Because there's not an interest in thinking, it will slow us down from saving our life. So part of what states do is they make themselves sticky, self-propelling. So if you're in terror, everything in your mind is telling you, you better be in terror, stay in terror, you're in tremendous danger, don't stop looking around, you could die any second. And if you're ashamed, the state is telling you, don't look for an escape, you are shameful, this is the truth, just own it for once, you suck. And so states have a way of once we're in them, trying to get us to stay in the state longer. Now, anyone who's had themselves stuck in a state with or without trauma knows it's really unpleasant. Whether you're angry for 3 days over a fight, or you're anxious for 2 or 3 days over a confrontation, or you're shut down for 1 or 2 days because you got so blown out of the water by something. And that if it takes time to actually practice so that you become adept at noticing what state you're in, noticing how and what you need to do to shift, and then doing it, that's the epitome of having freedom and choice.
Now, Jeffrey, who in your view is the Healing Trauma 9-month program for? I mentioned as someone who, is a business leader, I think it's for me because I'm in all kinds of situations where I want to stay grounded, regulated, and be a healing presence and embody safety for other people. Who else? Who else do you think the program's for?
I think it really is for anybody who either comes in contact with people who are going to get dysregulated, so business leaders, coaches, educators, massage therapists, parents, community activists, anybody who cares. It's for people who have had trauma in their lives and have done some work but find that their bodies are still getting stuck in these activation states. It's for helping professionals who would like to, who may have learned these techniques, but not embody them as well as they'd like to. They know how to teach them, but I think that if we can embody them, we have a way of teaching them even more deeply and effectively. My ultimate feeling is, honestly, this could be for anybody, because at its most basic level, it's almost like an owner's manual for your nervous system that we were never given. What it is, how to work with it, and how actually use it in the service of you being in this world, instead of being the unconscious driver of everything you do, think, and say in this world.
An owner's manual for my nervous system. I definitely need that. Now, Jeffrey, one final observation I want to make is that there's this thread that's gone through our whole conversation that I find really interesting. And that thread has to do with you pointing out that we can be in different states, but we're not the state. And it seems like that's a very important idea to you. So how do you understand identity and the importance of understanding our identity as not being conflated, not being the same as whatever state we're in? Why is that such an important idea for you?
Well, because I think that one of the biggest delusions that we have is that we're this mess. And this, mess that we judge. I'm all over the place. I'm angry and I'm ashamed and I get impatient and that's one of the ways that we can tell our story, that we can have a sense of self or identity, right? We also could have an inflated or narcissistic identity. I'm perfect. I am beyond reproach. I have no faults. Everyone should be like me. Both of those identities are not whole, right? And they're avoiding parts of us and parts of our feelings. The moment that I can begin to see that I can identify, and usually when I get hijacked, I do identify with the state of being angry, or the state of being shamed, or the state of being depressed, or the state of being terrified. But that in those states, as compelling and as real as they feel, what I've come to see is that they're not true. Let me say this another way. When you or I get angry, our brains will create similar patterns of thinking. The content will change, but both of our thoughts when we're angry will be about what we felt was wrong, that it was unjust, other things like that, right? That's what anger does. It puts the other person as the adversary. Fear, if I'm afraid, you're afraid, anyone else is afraid, they're worrying about something in the future that's potentially catastrophic. So when we're in a state, that's not really who we are. We're just playing out a script written by the state. In other words, you don't have a creative or innovative thought when you're in a state. You just don't. You have looping thoughts that are around the state. If I'm in shame, it's shame, 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 shame. If you're enraged, it's rage, 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 rage. You're not thinking, wait a minute, let me write a symphony about rage. That's not happening. You're too active into the rage, rage, rage part. So if we start paying attention to where we actually have choice, of where the parts of us are that are deeper than just a knee-jerk reaction, we come in contact with that part of us when we're in the window of tolerance, when we are in the social engagement system, when we feel relatively safe and relatively connected. And in that place, we're not our crazy thoughts. In that place, we're not having too many crazy thoughts. We still will be neurotic, but there's a difference between having anxiety, which is fine to have, being overwhelmed or terrified or stuck in high anxiety. That's unnecessary. And as long as we keep identifying with the states, we'll get, I used to have a patient say, well, that's just me. That's how I am. And, what I would say to them over time is, it's easier to believe that for you than to believe that you don't have to stay this way. And some people, again, may not feel safe enough to change.
And finally, Jeffrey, to close, what's your highest hope of what will be accomplished through the 9-month trauma healing program? What's your highest hope for the program, for the people who participate in it?
I would love for our participants to experience a sense of freedom and ease, understanding their nervous system and working with it in a way that they're an ally to it instead of fighting against it. That they're able to bring this understanding into relationships, to see how they contribute to disconnection and how they can contribute to connection. And ultimately to see that this is part of what's underlying our entire screwed up world right now, is that the biggest calamitous changes going on are driven by survival functions. Othering, anger, fear. These things are our ancient wiring, but if left unchecked, or if we keep believing that these states are us, then we're going to keep believing we have to oppress this people or that nation because, well, we're us, and they're wrong. So my hope is that we can stop some of the struggle and fighting and come to a sense of ease and peace inside, in relationships, but also actively contributing to helping the world be less reactive and less live from and in defensive states.